Wakey, wakey on the beat.
I'm excited. I was distracted. I did. Who turned my doorknob? Is that Rashard? You don't have to take this out. This can stay in. You totally distracted me, but it's okay. Welcome. Welcome. Okay, so y'all, this is an uncomfortable conversation. We'll be having quite a bit of them. And I'm going to start with a trigger warning because, and don't mind me, I'm going to be looking down at my phone occasionally because I don't want to lose track. I've made notes because I'm going to cover a lot today in this brief time. I don't know how much time I got, but I'm definitely going to cover quite a bit. So I'll look down at my phone occasionally. But just never mind that. This is new to me and I'm going to learn as I go, right? But I wanted to start. My son came in and distracted us, right? Thank you, Daddy. So I'm going to start, because listen, this is going to be so unfiltered because that's how, it's kind of a testament to how I live my life with my kids. Super unfiltered, very open. It's unscripted, which is something that I love. Of course, because I do have professional production, it is important to be professional, right? I'm going to try to be as professional as possible. But I'm going to start with a trigger warning, right? Because I'm going to talk about topics that are sensitive in nature, such as rape, molestation, child sex assault, domestic violence. I'm going to cover a plethora of things, so I have to give a trigger warning just in case any of this causes you some post-traumatic distress. I want to do, my due diligence in just giving you this trigger warning because I'm a person that's lived the last 16 years triggered, and I know what that feels like. You can unsee, unhear, or unexperience things. And because of that, I must tell you that if you are not comfortable with any of those topics and other topics that might make you really, really, really uncomfortable, or that you're sensitive to because of something you may have experienced or has directly affected you or somebody close to you, then I would ask that you leave now, okay? Give you 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0. So today I decided to do something that I've been wanting to do for more than a decade, and that is walk in my truth and to have the most uncomfortable conversations with people, not just those closest to me, like my children, because we've had those their entire life, but with other people because it promotes healing, it opens doors to purpose and passion and conversations that we in our community or just in the world in general don't like to have because they make us uncomfortable. So I decided that today I was going to do something I've wanted to do for a while. And although I'm doing it nervous, I'm not really nervous. I'm doing it uncomfortable for sure. I'm doing it scared. I'm doing it hopeful. I'm doing it because I'm ready. I'm ready for healing. So let the healing begin. Here we go. So this first conversation that we're going to have, and this is going to start, it was going to be a documentary to just kind of share my life because I do share my life already, but I think it's going to be a podcast or a show even. I don't know. Whatever God would have is what it's going to be. So, but the reason that I'm doing it is because I really want to open up the door and have these conversations with people just so that we can all heal, so that we can all get to a place where we are not fearful and not feeling shamed, living under the umbrella of shame, because we know that's a dream killer. And so I want to help people to not have to deal with those things. And we do it one day at a time. So one of the other reasons that I've decided to do this is because I realized a long time ago, so we're living in a day and time where influencers are the thing, right? And everybody's looking at an influencer, or everybody wants to be an influencer, not understanding that we are all influencers. I realized a long time ago that I was one because I gave birth to 5 children naturally, and I have 10, including stepchildren, right? And so having given birth to 5 children, I understood that I had the first opportunity to influence my kids. Literally, I had the first opportunity to show my kids what it was like to be a good human being in the world. I got to exhibit the behaviors that they should want to follow. I got to lay the platform. Like, I laid the foundation. So I was the first influencer that my kids had access to before social media was the wave. Okay. So because I realized that I was always conscious about how I navigated, in the world, especially because these kids were always watching me. And so it was important for me to do this and to share our life because we have for 16 consecutive years been on an island all by ourselves. And I mean that in a literal sense. I've endured things as a mother that no mother wants to experience. My kids have had to experience things that children should never experience. And it's just time. It's time for us to just be honest. The uncomfortable conversation, if I can be honest. What we've endured has really shaped who I was as a mother, as a woman, as a wife. And now it was pivotal for me to do it now because when I realized that I would pivot in private, and I'll talk later on about what that means to me because there's a thing that pivoted in public. I used to tell my kids, you better pivot in public and get it together, right? But to pivot in private for me, I had to really deal with myself because I realized that what we had endured was beginning to change me. Like midsummer, I was fasting and praying, and it got so hard for me. This has been the hardest year of my life that I had to pivot in private because I was becoming an unkind person. I had no patience with my children. I was just waking up mad every morning. And I'm that person that real life, can't wait for you guys to meet my kids on camera. I was that person that woke up laughing and smiling and singing to my kids. And even if they weren't, because a couple of them are not morning people, but I would be that mom that was just loving on them and waking them up, singing to them because I absolutely was excited about being alive. Well, in August, I was not. I was in isolation. I was dealing with myself. Isolation is a lonely place for an extrovert. I'm an extroverted woman. And so I was very uncomfortable, and I realized it's because I have been holding. Have you ever known something and you're just holding on to it? Even if let's not make it a negative thing. What if you knew something somebody was going to a surprise party and it was somebody close to you and you were excited about what they were going to experience and you're just super pumped about it and you got to hold it for 16 years. Imagine doing that. Holding something for 16 consecutive years. What do you think is going to do on the inside of you? At some point, you either going to erupt in excitement or you're going to explode. And that's where I was going in August until I decided to really take control of my mind. And for me, that's important because earlier today I was reminded, because I have what's called gray matter in my brain, right? And when you experience stress and trauma, it can spread. Gray matter is bad. White matter and black matter both serve a purpose, but gray matter is not a positive thing. So for me, it can be a really dangerous thing. I can develop schizophrenia within the next 5 years. I can just literally lose my mind. And so it's important for me to stay stress-free as much as possible because life comes, if you live long enough, you're going to experience something. But it's important to me to get free. And again, I've been in bondage for a long time by what has plagued me and my children. So let's jump right into that. That would be molestation. It would be child sex assault committed against my children. It plagued my household. I ended up having to fight for custody of my kids because they were accusing me of molesting my own children when it was in fact a very close relative of mine, and I'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. I'm going to do that with my kids because I want to give them an opportunity because they have a voice. In my household, my children have always had a voice, and I know everybody, listen, parent your household the way you feel is necessary. Whatever works for you, works for you. But as for me and my household, I've always given my kids a voice because I wanted my kids to be able to effectively communicate their thoughts. How they feel is important to me. And the fact that I did that was the reason that when my daughter was molested at 4 by my then 16-year-old nephew, she told me immediately because my kids always had a voice. And although I was the only person who believed her and has for the last 16 years, it was important for me to give her the tools, or give all of my kids the tools they needed to effectively communicate. And one of those things is allowing them to have a voice and a say in my household. So I don't rule with an iron fist. I am militant, but yeah, my children have a voice. So yeah, child molestation, rape, sex assault, those things really like devastated us. Like so much so that it's affected us mentally, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, socially, financially. Jesus, financially. It's really affected and impacted my family. And now it's just time. It's time for us to heal as a family, not just me, but as a family. And I realized a long time ago, I forgave him for what he did to my daughter at 4. But then more than a decade and a half later, I found out it wasn't just at 4. Like he had been running through my family, the girls in my family, and the other girls that he molested, raped, had sex with. They didn't tell me until they were grown adult women. My daughter was the only one bold and brave enough. And it's not to say that they were not, because victims are victims, and I never victimized victims. So much so that even when they came to me to tell me that he had, molested them or touched them, and they weren't completely honest, and we'll talk about that in another episode. They weren't completely honest. God revealed to me the real truth, and I confronted them on it because I'm a truth teller. Don't give me half story. The Bible says you should confess to God, but then share it with somebody else, because when you don't, like that stuff can kill you. Like you die on the inside. You deal with anxiety, you deal with depression, you deal with all these things because you are too afraid to tell somebody what has happened to you for fear of what? Just shame? Like everybody has dealt with something. Everybody is dealing with something. There is nobody perfect walking this earth under any circumstances. And so if they stand in judgment, it's them making an educated guess based on what they know. It might be a limited understanding, it might be an extensive understanding, but what they do with the information you give them, just be careful about the spaces that you walk into, that you share your business with. I'm okay with sharing this with the world because there are other families out there who have probably dealt with what I'm dealing with much longer. It's probably much worse. There are families that are going to deal with this because incest, it doesn't just affect white communities. I want y'all to stop thinking that. Yes, some of them wanted to keep noble blood noble, but do you remember back in the day when you had them families and they used to have, that child that they didn't really let come out, and there was some speculations about how the child was conceived. They were sending girls away, having babies. Some of them were having babies by their daddies. Some of them were having babies by their uncles. And those babies just happened to be, have some deficiencies, and nobody wanted to talk about it. These are really things that are happening right now to this day. Like I know families who are dealing with this. And the only reason I know is because they've talked to me about it, because I've been having very open and uncomfortable conversations about this. I've made some mistakes while navigating this 16-year experience. And do I regret them? No, because my intention was always pure. When I say made mistakes, I made the mistake of helping my daughter's abuser off of drugs, into rehab, not once, but twice, because he went on drug binge, took my money and all that stuff. Put him up in a hotel, helped him off the streets because he was homeless. And it's interesting. I have to say this. I got to make this very clear. My family came to me because they know low key that I'm the fixer. That when you come to me with a problem, I'm going to go spring into action and we're going to come up with a resolution. Otherwise, why are you telling me? My sister sat at my house and was crying about him when he was homeless, and I sprung into action. I helped him. She, in turn, only paid for one night hotel stay. I paid for more than 30 days, which was interesting, right? Because she don't have no kids, and she got the money to do it. And then when I got a call from my mom, who was crying because he was sleeping at subways and strung out on drugs and stuff. And she's like, something happens to him, I'm going to die. I already lost one grandchild, which was my stepdaughter, who was murdered on December 20th, 2019. I instantly thought, okay, I can't lose my mama. If ain't nobody been consistent in life, it's been my mama. I can't lose her to this. So of course, once again, I sprung into action. I spent more than $7,000 helping him off the streets and off of drugs until my daughter ran away in 2021 and it was a wrap. So that's a mistake I made. When I say I made a mistake, I still helped him. Now, hindsight, in August, when I realized that my heart was changing, that was probably the hardest thing for me, because people would say my biggest flex, I used to be like, my biggest flex is that I'm a good mother. No, my biggest flex is that people have violated me, mishandled me, hurt my children, and I've still managed to show up for them in a positive way. I've still managed to love these people. And it's been pure love. I haven't loved them out of guilt. I haven't loved them out of shame. I haven't loved them because I was coerced. I've loved them because it's who I am. And I'm proud of that. So my biggest flex is that people who have violated me, I've shown up for people in the middle of the night. I've fed people, opened my doors to them. I've taken care and protected their children, protected them, talked them off of ledges, all out of suicide, sat on the phone for hours and allowed people to monopolize my time when I did not have enough in me to keep going. And those people have turned around. Like, I have family members. I'm only talking to my mom right now. And one of my brothers, well, two of my brothers, well, one we don't really talk anyway, but my baby brother and my mother are the only people that I deal with in my family, my immediate family. And what's interesting is that the others, they create group chats that I found out about, because I'm the plug. Everybody gonna always come back to me. So I know what y'all doing. Listen, I'm determined. I'm not going to be crying, and I'm not going to be doing all that, because listen, I'm about to help somebody out of here. Somebody is going to heal in the name of Jesus after this comes out. But yeah, they created group chats, and I'm the plug. They be having group FaceTimes, asking about me, all of that. And it wasn't until recently that I went on ahead and blocked all of them, right? And it's only because I found out my children blocked them. Because if y'all, my mother has this saying, and you know, my mama gonna be mad, but she be all right. I love her. My mama has a saying, she'll be like, the kids don't have nothing to do with it, girl, bye. Baby, my kids have everything to do with it. If you want my five kids, as my daughter's mother would say, if you want my tribe of five to choose you or me, baby, they choosing me all day. They're not choosing you. My kids are solid. So when I found out my kids had blocked all these people, I was like, oh, dang, guess I better have a block party too. Because my kids, listen, block party, we blocking everybody. My kids was changing names to Miss this and Mr. that. Like, my kids do not play when it comes to their mama. Especially when things start to affect me. Oh, it's a wrap, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm a little parched. So, yeah, my kids wasn't playing, and I realized that I had to like really block some folks. And still, I genuinely love them. I pray that all of these people, when this comes out, and you know, that it really helps people to really begin their healing journey, because they need that. What people don't realize, especially when you begin to have children, is that you're responsible for life. You're the portal of life, and how you live, as I said earlier, like your kids are watching, is going to directly impact and affect how they view relationships, how they view human behavior, how they view you as a mom. And it's no need in creating unnecessary stress and trauma when you can just get some therapy, deal with yourself, deal with your abusers, deal with the things that have happened to you, and begin to heal. Like, otherwise you're going to hold that stuff like I have for 16 years. Imagine being triggered for 16 years. Like, just imagine being triggered for 16 years. It's enough to make you angry. It's enough. And when I say I'm a good person, but mad as hell. Like, I just became a very angry person. And everything that was said to me was like, I was ready, just war ready. Fighting the wrong way. Sometimes fighting the wrong people. And especially when it came to my kids. And when I realized that I wasn't being kind to my children, I was like, yeah, no. I'm letting these people change me. And I just had to like flip it. And the way I'm flipping it is we're going to have some of the most uncomfortable conversations. And again, today started with molestation, rape, child sex assault, because that is something that really has affected me and my kids. And that's where we had to start, because that's like the foundation of why I decided to start having these conversations, because that was probably the worst, the hardest conversation I ever had to have. And I myself, because I'm a survivor, a thriver, I'm not a survivor, I'm a thriver, because survivors, that's a beautiful word, but I'm a thriver, right? At 11, I was molested, and oh, y'all, it's about to get real uncomfortable. Like, listen. All right, let me get it together. So, at 11, I was molested by a man who was, I believe, about 30. He was a cousin, and I write about this in my book that I published in 2016, 17, something like that. I completed it in 2016, shortly after I published it. So I was like 2017. It's called Hide Me From Me. And in that book, I talk about this, so it's no secret. So at 11 years old, now this part I have not said out loud, but to two people, my psychiatrist and my psychologist. So I was 11. I was spending the night at one of my aunt's houses. And my abuser was 30, about 30. I think he was about 30. And he came into the room, and I was pretending that I was asleep when he came in, because I heard him. And he was just weird. He just gave me weird vibes. Like when I was there, it was awkward. And so he came in the room, and I instantly closed my eyes and pretended I was asleep. He sat down on the bed, and I could smell, it's so vivid in my mind. He smelled like beer, not liquor, but beer. It just smells so horrible. I am not a drinker. Do not drink. Don't like drinking. Addiction has always, that's another topic we'll talk about later on. But because of addiction, I've never liked alcohol or whatever. And so because my dad was an addict. So he came in the room, and I could smell all of this alcohol, like beer, on his breath. And he was like, hey. And I was just like, I just lay there, and I just didn't move. And he put his hands in my panties, and this man rubbed my vagina until now I know, as an adult woman, that it was a climax, right? And while something so wrong was happening to me, and I literally was crying on the inside, while something so terrible was happening, your body naturally responds. Nobody wants to have this conversation because it makes you feel awkward. To say that you climaxed at 11, 30-year-old man, by virtue of him, stimulating you until you reach that point. It was so uncomfortable because you can't control what's happening to your body. And while in your mind you like, this is wrong, it felt good. That's the reality of things. Imagine being that child who deals with that and nobody gets you help. Now, my mother didn't send me through therapy. We didn't even have a conversation about it after that. They did what they thought was necessary. They got retribution, but they never helped me. She never asked me what happened, how bad it was. She never asked me how I felt about it afterwards. I just had to deal with it. I had to deal with it until I was an adult woman, and of course, it just shaped how I behaved sexually. Because that's what happens when you don't tend to these type of things. So with my kids, though, when molestation hit my daughter and then ran through my household, we did the opposite. My son did exactly what I told him to do. You tell anybody that's going to listen. And he went to school and told. So then social services come knocking at my door. CPS, They come knocking at my door. And I ended up having to fight to keep custody of my kids and prove to them that I wasn't the one molesting my kids, because they automatically assumed I was, right? And I knew the truth. And the truth ended up coming out, and, all was well in my household, but we still had not dealt with the predator that ran through my family. To this day, my family has under no circumstances asked him why he molested my daughter, why he sexually assaulted my daughter, why he had sex with somebody closer to him in blood that's not my daughter, why he molested other girls in my family. Nobody's ever held him accountable. Nobody's ever had the conversation. As a matter of fact, they protect him. As a matter of fact, they I feel like it's coddling, because they still want to talk about him to me. And that's one of the reasons we're not talking, because don't talk to me about him. I'm a forgiving person. I'm a loving person, but do not talk to me about my daughter's abuser. Do not talk to me about that predator. Do not talk to me about that pervert. I'm not okay with it. Because if we're going to talk about anything, we're going to talk about him going to prison and being on a sex offender registry. That's it. That's the only conversations we're going to have. I don't want to hear about new babies that he have. I don't want to hear about none of that. And when I say those things, my mom would say things like, and even my sister, the kids don't have anything to do with it. Yes, they do. The kids have everything to do with it. And if y'all had that same energy when my daughter was 4 years old, perhaps we wouldn't be at this place. But we are. And we're going to heal and deal with it, all of us. So I really, when I wrote Hide Me From Me and talked about, the various issues that we were dealing with, I got a phone call from one of my aunts, and she's like, you should write a tell-all. And I began shortly after that, not just because she suggested it, because she kind of knew some of the stuff that I had dealt with, but because it was time. Like, it is so liberating to tell the truth. It is such a liberating place to be when you can walk in truth. You have peace that surpasses all understanding. And what that means, you have peace. Peace is accepting whatever God allows. If I had to be honest, because God is all-knowing, all-being, all-powerful, my daughter being molested and my daughter being raped was allowed. Like, God allowed that to happen. He knew it was going to happen. He could have stopped it, and he did not. So I had all these questions because I wanted to know why, like why it happened. And over time, it was all revealed to me. And which is why we're here, because we don't endure those things just because God wants us to become stronger human beings. We endure those things because we may be stronger vessels and put on this earth to be hands and feet and to help save others. Sometimes you are going to be the only introduction to Christianity, to kindness, to love, to peace, to understanding, to clarity that somebody has. And when you understand that about yourself, you behave differently, you walk differently, you walk in truth, you walk in love, you walk in peace, you walk in harmony. And that's who I am. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this journey. I think this should be a podcast. I think my producer was right. It should definitely be a podcast. Yeah, because I don't want to be long and drawn out. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to sit down with my children who were ready for this to happen. They were just like, pull the trigger on this because, well, one of my daughters in particular was like, I've been waiting for you to pull the trigger, like shots fired, it's coming. And I'm like, and she didn't mean it in a bad way. She's just like, it's just time, because why do we have to keep walking on eggshells? Why do I have to keep opening my door to these people just because they're blood relatives? No, it is not okay for your blood relatives to mistreat you and mishandle you. It is okay to have misunderstandings. It's okay to not agree about everything. But when it gets to a point where somebody does something to violate one of your kids, you don't have to tolerate that. You don't have to still see them and spend time with them and fellowship with them. And I'm talking about, it's so heavy, deep, and real. I'm saving all the heavy, deep, and real stuff because my kids need to be a part of that conversation, because again, I've always allowed them to have a voice, and there may be something that I miss. I want to respect my children, which is something I've always done. Before I even helped my daughter's abuser, I asked for her permission first. And if she had said no, let me rewind. Had I known that he did other things to my daughter at 7, because I only knew about the age of 4. Had I known he did stuff at 7, and he did one thing allegedly at the age of 4, and I always believed my daughter, even when nobody else did. But had I known he abused her from 7 to 9, and that he abused and was having sex with other blood relatives, there is no way in hell, pardon my French, that I would have helped him. Under no circumstances. And that, that was my disobedience though, because sometimes God wants us to come to him in the most uncomfortable state. So instead of me springing into action, you know why right now I'm in debt because of this situation, and I can laugh at it because God is still providing for me. I still have a roof over my head. I'm very comfortable. There's love flowing through my house. But the reason that I'm in debt is because I was helping fund something that was not good, instead of praying for him, releasing him. And when my family called me to ask me to help him, I should have said, no. So the Bible talks about this, and this is something else we don't want to talk about. So long suffering is a thing. And we can't avoid that sometimes. And when you've done the perverted, wicked things that he has done, like he has to do, like God is going to deal with him on his stuff. But if we run in and save people, God does not, like, you're interfering with the work of the Lord. You're interfering with what God wants to do. Perhaps God didn't want me to help him because there are things we do just because our hearts are led. And I got a big heart. My heart is too big sometimes. And so I've sprung into action and I helped him, but perhaps God just wanted me to pray for him and find the addiction recovery home. And if he left one, but if he didn't want to do that, or God would have funded it. God would have provided for him. If that was his destiny, God would have made sure that it happened instead of Tamika making sure it happened. So then Tamika ended up going broke because she made sure it happened. So, but that's just one of the consequences to choices that we make. And I'm walking it out because, my favorite saying is, it's my race to run, and it is, and I'm going to come out on top. But yeah, like, don't let people mishandle you. Don't let them mishandle your children. Don't let them abuse you, disrespect you. Don't allow them to do those things and get away with it. There are words nowadays that we love, that we're living in. The word triggered, the word boundaries, what else? Gaslighting. All these words that we throw around, I be like blown away at how people just misuse these words or use them as an excuse. But the sad reality in my situation is I did not create hard boundaries. I have now. But I made the mistake of not creating hard boundaries. And then when people cross those boundaries, like, you've got to make people respect boundaries. Boundaries are designed to keep us safe, and they're okay to create them. Don't let people misuse you and abuse you. Otherwise, you'll be sitting here 16 years later trying to save yourself and others from enduring and dealing with what you've had to deal with over the years. So let my life be a lesson. Because I'm trying to instill that in my kids. Let my life be yours. You get to stand on my shoulders and be great. I've made all the mistakes for you. Yes, you're going to make some mistakes too. But if I've told you what was behind door 1, 2, and 3, then maybe you should try 4, 5, or 6. Don't go through 1, 2, or 3. Okay? So I'm excited about the months, the weeks. Yeah, I go months. Years. I'm excited about the years to come. And I'm so proud of myself because I did this without crying. And I know that crying makes people feel like they're connecting with you and, and all that stuff. But the reality is for 16 years, I have been suffering and crying and weeping in private and praying and fasting and meditating and searching and running and ripping and serving. And I've done all of that. And so now I'm just ready to live and to heal and to be present in this moment. And because I'm present in this moment right now, I cannot cry. Now, I can't say when I hear how it affected my babies that I won't be ready to fight again and be crying. But right now, today, I'm excited about the uncomfortable conversation. I am excited that I have finally done this because it was time. The time is now. It's my time and my turn. I'm done. It's a wrap.
You sure?
I'm sure.